reverse side too. And one of the things that we've heard in recent years is the question, isn't this over yet? Isn't the war finished? Do we have to still go through this? So I think it's important as we honor the victims of 9/11 to address that question very directly. Because if we get the answer wrong, there will be more 9/11s in our future. And so as we look at this question, I think the first thing we have to ask is, as a nation, have we become too complacent? Because ultimately, the answer to the question about America's safety rests with us. More than anything else, it's a question about our attitudes. And if we're honest about it, we will see that some of our fellow citizens have become complacent. Part of it's just human nature. 10 years is a long time. Part of it is forgetfulness. That's just part of human nature too. But there are other parts of it that are a little more troubling. And I have to say, this morning I saw an example of the most troubling kind. And I was so outraged when I read this that I almost thought, I'll give this a pass, but I just think it's too important to let it go by, because it illustrates, in my mind, the problem we still have at home. I'll get to the problems internationally in a minute. But this morning, Paul Krugman, a columnist for the New York Times, a professor at Princeton University, a Nobel Prize winner for economics. I don't know how else you define establishment other than by those criteria. In his blog, The Conscience of a Liberal, looked at 9/11. And this is what he said. He said, what happened after 9/11, and I think even people on the right know this, whether they admit it or not, was deeply shameful. He attacked what he called fake heroes, like President Bush and Mayor Giuliani, who, in his words, he said, raced to cash in on the horror. He then said, the memory of referring to what happened after 9/11, he said, the memory of 9/11 has been irrevocably poisoned. It has become an occasion for shame. And in its heart, the nation knows it. Now, it is so twisted for anyone, let alone an American citizen, to say those things, that, as I say, it passed my mind that I just ought to let it go rather than read it. But I think you can understand now why I decided it was important to bring it to your attention. Because this is a view of someone deep in the heart of the American establishment, not some foreigner who doesn't care about our country, but one of our fellow citizens. And however outrageous those views, we can assume that many others share them. Many on his newspaper, many in our schools and universities, many in the mainstream media, and many in governmental institutions and the government complex in Washington. Now, not all of them share the views in exactly the way he put them, I hope. They probably shades of difference. But there are people in this country who believe that we are at fault for responding to 9/11 the way that we did. So the next time the thought crosses your mind, as it crosses all of our minds, why is this burden placed on us? Why are our responsibilities so great? Think about the attitude of people like Paul Krugman, who deny us the right to defend ourselves. And when we see it in our own country, I think we have an understanding of, a better understanding of the nature of the threat we face. because those who wish us ill internationally think exactly the same thing. And they are not waiting for us to get our economic house in order. They are challenging us today. Now, we ask beyond our own complacency, are we safer today than we were on 9/11? And, you know, there's no simple answer to that question. In some respects we are, in some respects we're not. There are more variables in play than just the world as it was on September the 11th, followed by the attacks, followed by our response. A lot of factors have been moving around the world since then, not all of them in response to what America does. Many forces have been out there, unleashed now, for reasons well beyond our decision to defend ourselves and go after those who attacked us on 9/11. It's not enough simply to say, as some do, that the main branch of al-Qaeda has suffered grievously, that we have killed Osama bin Laden, thank goodness, that we've hampered their abilities in many material respects. That's true. Our military has had amazing success over the past 10 years. We have defeated the Taliban in Afghanistan. We have overthrown Saddam Hussein, one of the worst threats to international peace and security in our lifetime. We've had many other victories as well. But that's not the end of it, unfortunately, because of these forces that have been unleashed in the Middle East and elsewhere around the world. And that's why I think it is possible to say two things at the same time. We have scored enormous victories, but we are not yet fully safe. That's why shortly after 9/11, President Bush talked about the war against terrorism being a long war. It had to be a long war. It's a different kind of war than we've fought before, not just against the terrorists, but against their state sponsors as well, and not just those who overtly sponsor terrorism, but those who assisted in more indirect ways. And there are many of those as well. We have experience in long wars. We had a long war against communism. And many people in this country and around the world didn't have the stomach for that either. They didn't want to take the time and spend the resources that were necessary. But ultimately we triumphed, and we will triumph over this threat as well, as long as we can maintain our resolve. So it's the requirement is that we live in a world of ambiguity, that we can have victories, but we cannot be totally safe, because in fact, we're never going to be totally safe. Not as long as we are who we are. History is not going to end. We may wish it would, but it's not going to. And that is the responsibility that we have. Now, we have made several critical decisions in the last 10 years that I think have been important to understanding how to deal with the threats against the United States. And the most important decision, I think, was one made literally in the days and weeks after the 9/11 attacks, to understand what happened to us as an act of war, as an unprovoked act of aggression against the United States. We rejected the metaphor that had dominated our thinking before, that terrorism was a law enforcement matter, that you could deal with terrorism by apprehending the perpetrators, prosecuting them, and punishing them by jail sentences or otherwise. That metaphor doesn't begin to capture the nature of the threat against the United States around the world. By understanding it as an act of war, we were able to marshal all of our forces, all of our constitutional authority to defend ourselves. The attacks of 9/11 were not big bank robberies. They were acts of war. And that decision made by President Bush very early on is something that was intensely critical.